It can be confusing keeping all of the terms associated with the various forms of literacy straight. In the module, we examine some of the terminology and focus on the terms that we will be using regularly over the duration of this course. It is important for us to have common vocabulary. We'll begin very generally with the question, what is literacy? Pause for a moment and think about your own schooling. If you were in elementary school in Ontario, you studied the language arts, which included, depending on your age, reading, writing, speaking, and listening. If you were younger, the language arts may have also included a study of media and the strands, viewing and representing. In Ontario, the media strand was not added to the curriculum until 2007. In your tutorial session or in the online discussion, it might be interesting to compare your early educational literacy experiences to see how they differ across provinces, countries, and time periods. Your word cloud might look different from the one pictured on the screen, but it might share some of the same words or phrases. The notion of being literate has changed over history. In the 1700s, for example, you would be considered literate if you could sign your name. Many people who were not literate had to sign using an X. In the 1800s, you were literate if you could read a prepared passage, usually from the Bible, as well as write your own name. In North American context, a literate person in 1870 was equated with an educational level at the time only 2% of the population finished secondary school, and less than 1% earned a degree from a college or university. In 1915, the U.S. Army created a literacy test that consisted of reading short passages of text and then answering literal comprehension questions related to the passage. Indeed, the emphasis on reading comprehension was predominant until quite recently, when you consider the grand scale of history. In the early 1990s, other forms of reading became increasingly important, although even now, reading print text is still privileged in most elementary and secondary schools around the world. However, with the changing and ever-emerging new forms of text, educators have realized that literacy goes far beyond reading and writing print texts. Take a moment, pause the video, and make your own list of all of the literate practices you engage in on a daily basis in your academic, work, and personal lives. From doing your banking, texting your friends, and reading and writing for academic purposes, you will be amazed at the long list you will generate. Take a look at the list you generated and see if you can develop some categories for the kinds of literacy activities you engage in. You might consider using purpose as an organizing principle. For example, you read scholarly articles to learn what an established expert had to say on a specific topic, but you might go on Facebook to communicate with your friends. Both would be considered literacy practices. Let's turn our attention to another question. What is literacy in the 21st century? You've already begun to explore that question in the last activity. Another way to tackle this question is to consider how learning has shifted with the advent of different kinds of technological tools. View the MacArthur Foundation's video clip to explore this question a little further. The term 21st century literacies has become a catch-all to talk about the kinds of literacy practices that we are engaged in today, whether we are talking about youth or adults. Let's try to sort out some of these terms. Sometimes the terms encapsulate very similar ideas but have been coined by a scholar or group of scholars to advance a specific idea. For example, when we use the term multiple literacies, We are acknowledging that there is not just one kind of literacy, reading and writing, print text, that we either have or don't have. When we use the term multiliteracies, we refer to a very specific conception of multiple literacies developed by a group of 10 scholars called the New London Group, who came together in 1996 to consider how literacy pedagogy might address the rapid change in literacy due to globalization, technology, and increasing cultural and social diversity. The result was a pedagogy of multiliteracies. Cope and Kalantzis, 1996. They introduce a framework consisting of 3 elements of design to describe the activities of an individual as they identify, read, and create new text using varying semiotic codes. The following 3 notions of design allow us to create patterns of meaning from the multiliteracies around us. Within this framework, pedagogy is seen as a relationship that promotes the learning conditions to support full participation in communities and economies. This multiliteracies theory includes 4 pedagogical components: situated practice, overt instruction, critical framing, and transformed practice. Situated practice is the immersion of the learner in meaningful practices within a learning community. Overt instruction refers to deliberate interventions by the teacher to guide and support the learning. Critical framing helps the learner to study literacies within contexts such as experience, culture, history, and politics. The 4th element, transformed practice, refers to indicators of change or transfer from what a student has learned into a new situation or context. New London Group, 1996. Multimodal literacies may or may not include the use of digital technologies. For example, a student who creates a diorama or a 3D model of a battle site using clay and paint is working multimodally. Teachers have been incorporating multimodal forms of expression in our teaching since long before the advent of internet and computers. Think about those art projects in history class or that drama presentation you did in English class. However, new digital tools are making it much easier and more convenient to express ourselves through images, music, and gesture. We read the world through symbols, colors, signs, body language, and in the gaps and margins as well as through print text, but print text, or the linguistic mode, is still privileged in many classrooms. The term multimodality will be used often in this course, and Kress and Van Leeuwen define it as the use of several semiotic modes in the design of a semiotic product or event, together with the particular way in which these modes are combined. Kress and Van Leeuwen, 2001. Use the link on the screen to watch a short video clip of Gunther Kress, professor at the Institute of Education, University of London, discussing the question, what is multimodality? Lancashire and Noble argue that new literacies are more participatory, collaborative, and distributed in nature than conventional literacies. They are also less expert-dominated than conventional literacies. If you take a look at the comparison on the screen, you'll notice that L and K identify 2 mindsets. The first is a summary of the mindset associated with an industrial model, where the focus is on the individual and products, material, artifact, and commodities. Tools tend to be production tools. In comparison, the second mindset is based on a post-industrial view of production, where products tend to enable services, the tools promote participation, and they connect people to each other in various ways. One only has to think about the number of people employed in the production industry of, say, cars today compared to the number of people who work in providing services. Like Wehner, who we talked about in Module 1, Lancashire and Noble point out that expertise and authority is increasingly shared and more open distributed. If you wanted to hear what an expert had to say about a specific topic a dozen years ago, you had to go out and buy their book or go to his or her lecture or talk. Now the notion of expertise or authority to speak on a certain topic is being shared among all of us. As we all know, anyone can voice an opinion online, and a group can get together to discuss and debate an issue, giving us a plethora of views on any given subject. New literacies, according to Lancashire and Noble, 2006, may or may not include digital technology. New literacies, in what they describe in the ontological sense, involves examining literacy as a social practice, and this may include both pre- and post-topographic forms of text. New literacies include both the technical stuff and the ethos stuff, page 25. Examples of how the technical aspects of new literacies might be, for example, text messaging, social media, using and constructing hyperlinks, online chats, blogging, and the new interfaces that allow remixing and publishing with considerable ease. Examples of the ethos aspects of new literacies would include, for example, greater emphasis on participation, collaboration, group ownership of knowledge, and the building of relationships. Lancashire and Noble, 2006. This collaboration could happen in either print-rich environments or what has been described by Jewett, 2008, as an acquisition-rich environment. Page 248. The emphasis on relationship and its connection to information is particularly important. Michael Schrange, in 2001, actually argued that the term information revolution is a misnomer. He argues that the so-called information revolution itself is actually, and more accurately, a relationship revolution. Anyone trying to get a handle on the dazzling technologies of today and the impact they'll have tomorrow would be well advised to reorient their worldview around relationships. Schrange maintains that the genuine significance of these technologies isn't rooted in the information they possess and store. Rather, the greatest impact they have had and will continue to have is on the relationships between people and between organizations. This is a key point, and one that will inform our learning in this course as we look at topics such as participatory culture, online social activism, and the role of Web 2.0 technologies to generate and share information.